In the past few episodes of I Got Rhythm, we looked at a bunch of different examples of ways in which musicians will typically accentuate the eighth note upbeats, those and counts between the beats, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, to produce a variety of interesting and dramatic syncopations in 4/4 meter. As we saw, this can add rhythmic flair to a groove or song and create an energetic feeling of forward motion. I'd now like to introduce you to a deeper level of rhythmic complexity using what are called 16th notes, which involve dividing a bar of 4/4 into 16 units. In the same way that you can split or subdivide a quarter note in half to produce 2 eighth notes, you can likewise split an eighth note in half to get 2 16th notes, each of which has half the duration of an eighth note and goes by twice as quickly. If you do that to a pair of eighth notes across one beat, the result is a 4-note set of 16th notes. Da 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 da, da 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 da, which some musicians refer to as a quad, which I find is very helpful. Now, in both standard sheet music and Guitar World's rhythmic tab notation, those 4 16th notes are grouped together with their vertical stems connected by 2 parallel horizontal beams, as shown in Figure 1. So it's 1 beam for eighth notes, 2 beams for 16th notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. So the first time I down pick the eighth notes, but then alternate pick the 16th notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. That's a lazy man's or woman's way of doing it, right? And then the second time through, I doubled up on the down picking, the metal style, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 20. That's got that cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha machine gun type of attack, but it's twice as much effort. But it's worth it sometimes. Now, if we were to do the same thing across all 4 beats in a bar of 4/4, we would get, as I mentioned earlier, 16 evenly spaced 16th notes, or 4 quads, 1 for each beat. 4 times 4 equals 16. 16th notes are counted 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. That builds upon the foundational eighth note count of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So the ands are still in the same spot, only now we're adding 2 extra syllables, E and a, 1 E and a, which are inserted before and after and to mark the second and fourth 16th note of any given beat. The first 16th note is the beat itself, right? The number 1, 2, 3, or 4. And the third one is the and count. So those still coincide with the eighth notes. By subdividing the beats into 16th notes, we've now more than doubled the rhythmic possibilities that were available using only eighth, quarter, half, and whole notes, as we can now include 16th notes in many combinations with these larger and slower rhythmic values to create dozens of new phrasing schemes. And that's not even including the use of ties and 16th rests, which is something we'll explore in the next lesson. 16th notes are usually performed with alternate picking, down, up, down, up. Or if you're strumming a chord, however, in metal and hard rock, players like James Hetfield, Metallica, and Megadeth's Dave Mustaine have made great use of and popularized a technique called chugging, which refers to picking palm-muted 16th notes as consecutive downstrokes. Then we'll throw in a little down-up, those 32nd notes, which we'll get to eventually. So when played with a high-gain bridge humbucker tone, the result is a very intense, uniform note attack, right? It's all downstrokes, which you can't quite replicate using alternate picking, which sounds kind of swishy. Right? The upstroke's always going to give you that shh. Downstroke is more of an versus chugging is a physically demanding technique, and it takes a great deal of practice to build up the speed and stamina required to play metal riffs with conviction and get through an entire song without your hand becoming fatigued or cramping up. A lot of times I find myself, I'm not a great metal player at all. I'll just revert back to alternate strumming just to save myself so I can get through the song, I'll start out doing ja-ja-ja-ja-ja-ja-ja, and by 30 seconds into the song, I'm going, judge it. I think Jimmy Page ended up doing that in A Whole Lot of Love. He starts out with... and then like, by the minute of the song, he's going... or he's going up, down, down, up, down, 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 which gives you a little bit of a welcome relief. By the way, those are all 16th notes, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. To help acquaint you with some of the phrasing possibilities available with 16th notes, here are a couple of examples of some basic ways that you can combine the rhythmic values we've learned thus far and count them out. And for the sake of focusing strictly on the rhythm here, I'm deliberately using only one repeating note, the open low E string. You could, of course, substitute other notes or chords to make things sound more interesting when you're practicing it. But in this next example, which is very basic, I'm just going to cycle through whole notes, half notes, quarters, eighths, and sixteenths, doubling up the number of notes each time, as if like shifting gears in a truck, right? And I'm going to cycle back through them in reverse order. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we kept cell dividing, right? We kept going from one whole note to two half notes, and then each half note is divided into a quarter note. So we got 4 quarter notes, then 8 eighth notes, 16 16th notes. See how it works, right? It's just fractions. It all kind of makes sense. In this next example, I'm going to mix and match these various rhythmic values across subsequent beats. Again, still using just that open E note to minimize any distractions with the fret hand and to help you focus strictly on the rhythms here. I'll play each one bar pattern twice as written in figure 3, and bars 2 and 3, I'll throw in a couple of rests to demonstrate some of the many possibilities that are available. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3 and a 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and a 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and a 4, 1 and 2, 3 and a 4, 1 and a 2 and 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. Okay, first bar is pretty simple, right? We just did quarter note, 2 eighths, 4 sixteenths, 2 eighths, 1, 2 and 3 and a 4 and. And then second bar, we threw in a rest on beat 2, 1 and 2, 3 and a 4, 1 and 2, 3 and a 4. Third bar, I'm throwing you a curveball here. I'm going 1E and a 2E and a 3 and a 4E and a ba 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 ba. Getting into a little bit of syncopation there, but as you can see, it's a little taste of some of the cool possibilities that 16th notes suddenly add to our whole vocabulary of rhythms. As you sight read and play these rhythms, do yourself a favor and make a habit of tapping your foot squarely on each beat, like a metronome, as you count the beats and subdivisions, either out loud or just in your head. I'm using a bass drum here and a tambourine. It makes it more fun. Musical adds to the performance, right? But just using a foot tap is good. And you don't have to count out loud. You can count inside your head. But doing this is really the key to being able to school yourself, homeschool yourself in rhythmic knowledge, and be able to wrap your head around this marvelous grid of metric combinations without losing track of the beats. Thanks for watching. See you next time.